The first test produced a faint blue line. Not the kind of faint blue line that's still used as an example of pregnancy, no, fainter than that. It was a kind of faint blue line that could have been a figment of our imaginations or a very faint blue line. It was a quantum superposition blue line that simultaneously existed and didn't exist. It was a vague blue line. It was a non-committal blue line. It was a Jeremy Hunt at the Levson inquiry. My show is called Now Is Not the Time for Politics. It's based on poems I wrote over a year, one poem a day in Tertzerima. But I just felt I had to take these to another level, and the interesting thing was I documented a whole year, and it was a year in which I became a father for the first time. The speck of life that stirs within your womb is now a fact sanctioned by our GP. A place within the crowded polis looms, and so begins a trend to entropy from nature's realm to citizen of state, from breath to name before your first nappy is, like our dearest leaders, full of shit. Obviously I'm going for some laughs, but maybe there'll be a few moments where people will be maybe provoked into thinking about some things, whether they vigorously disagree with me about points I make or not. Hey, you might even offend people in places. And yet, all too often when one ventures a critique of capitalism, the respondent will often return fire with, well, let's see you come up with a better system then. Or, why don't you go piss off and live in North Korea? Or, why don't you go piss off and live in the woods? Or, why don't you go piss off and live in the woods in North Korea? But the thing is if you saw a crack in a dam that was a sure sign that a deluge was just going to wash away the neighbouring village, no one in the village will respond to you by saying, well, let's see your alternative plans for a civil engineering project. and I guess I'm also surreptitiously going for the heartstrings, especially at the end of the show. I'm going for that little single tear down audience members' eyes at the very end of it. I hope that we can do this when we're old. Walk through our manor on a spring day's end, log crusts at waterfowl around the pond, grumble about the boozing youngsters when they sway all giggly into our path. We'll fend off unleashed pit bulls with our canes, and tut when they defecate on the grass. Then, as the last sun rays run flat and low, we'll bemoan how we've lost our golden past. That is, until the sudden tremulous throes of birdsong emits from bower cathedrals that shimmer in the final hazy glow, and in turn will be ageless and enthralled. The show is it's questioning the line of demarcation between what we call the political and what we call the personal. And I think the most interesting moments are about the kind of blurring between those boundaries. Perfect. It's just after 11, and each soul on the Victoria line reads from their phones or thumbs their way onto the next level of Angry Birds, when suddenly some loon begins to shout before the doors slide shut at some young man who's just got off the train. Yeah, you better get off, immigrant. Don't play them bloody drums in Africa. We stay silent. There's not even a tut before a black guy opposite me mutters, he's obviously a good friend of John Terry. And after stifled giggles, I rejoinder, there's drums in Europe too, apparently. And like that final scene in Spartacus when all those faithful men stand up to shout that it is their name too, other commuters state other places where they play the drums. Like Scotland, South Korea and Croatia. And after each location named there comes a louder round of chuckles till the man that made the racist comment sits and squirms, and after drum location number 10 he sullenly whispers, I've calmed down now.